Hi there, my name is David Diehl. I'm here at the Capital Grille in King of Prussia. First of all, I would like to say I hope you're all doing very well today. I would also like to thank the King of Prussia district for allowing me the opportunity to sit here and talk to you about something that I personally am very passionate about, and I hope you are fond of it as well. And if it's not clear already what that is, today we'll be talking about wine. I have 2 whites and 2 reds on the table, 4 very different wines, but I think you'll find by the end of this talk that there is something on this table for everyone to enjoy. And really, without wasting too much time, let's just go ahead and get right into it. The first wine that I've chosen to talk about today is Riesling. This is S.A. Prum Essence Riesling from Mosel, Germany. Try to help you see that as best as possible. Germany, arguably being best well known for their Rieslings. They come in a variety of styles ranging from bone dry to off dry to very, very sweet. You can use that in a lot of different ways in the kitchen. This one happens to be an off dry wine, and you can use that sweetness in many ways. I like to use it to contrast spice. If you're like me and you like to douse hot sauce on everything, Riesling works very, very well in that regard. Riesling also tends to be very high in acidic structure, meaning it's going to be very, very crisp, very bright. It's going to cut through a lot of foods very easily. One thing that you might not have thought to use wine with, and I have tried this before, is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. The sweetness of the jelly, of course, works very well with the sweetness of the wine, but that acidity really cuts through the thickness of the peanut butter that coats the top of your mouth and just washes you out and just makes that next bite that much more enjoyable. You can also use this with, if you're looking at our menu, the thing that comes to mind for me is our hot honey chicken sandwich. And if you don't see where I'm going with this, the sweetness of the honey and the spice that's in the honey works, again, very, very well, and just creates a much more enjoyable sandwich. The second wine that we're going to talk about today is Chardonnay. This is Patton Hall Chardonnay from Sonoma Coast, California. If you are a wine drinker, the Sonoma name should be very, very familiar to you. Chardonnay, if you're familiar with that, tends to be a very full-bodied wine, much fuller than this wine. This is going to feel like whole milk, whereas this might feel something like skim milk, if that is one way you want to think about it. Chardonnay tends to be very buttery, very creamy, very rich. That tends to be a result of the oak treatment that they typically use on Chardonnay, and you see that in the color of the glass. It tends to be a much more golden color. In terms of fruit characteristic, what you will see is typically lemon. You're going to see red apple, yellow apple. You're going to pick up some things like baking spices, like cinnamon and all those types of things. When it comes to using Chardonnay in the kitchen, you want to look for something that's very, very rich, just like the wine. The first thing to me that comes to mind is like an Alfredo style pasta, that butter-based thick pasta. The other thing with this wine is that it does have a certain salinity character to it, meaning it has a little bit of a saltiness, and that plays very well into seafood. And then as a result, you could put maybe some shrimp in your pasta, some scallops. Again, it's only going to make it better. If I'm looking at our menu, what we offer, the first thing that comes to mind is our miso buttered sea bass. Of course, the sea bass lending itself naturally being a fish. But then when you add that richness of that miso butter on top, again, this is just going to complement that very, very well. And it's going to create a delicious dish for you to enjoy. Maybe you're making some mac and cheese right now at home, and maybe for your kids, and maybe you spoon a little bit off the top for yourself. Again, this is a good option. Other thing that comes to mind is I'm sure there's plenty of people binge watching Netflix, watching a lot of movies right now, and maybe you're popping some buttered popcorn. Again, if you see where I'm going, this is a great option for that. Sit back, relax, have a glass, and watch a movie. To the third wine, moving on to red. So the third wine that I chose is a Pinot Noir. It is Grand Moraine. This is coming from the Willamette Valley in Oregon. If you're thinking about the main differences between an Oregon Pinot Noir and a California Pinot Noir, the main difference is that California Pinot Noirs tend to be very, very rich, very, very lush, super fruit forward. The fruit gets very, very ripe, coats your mouth, delicious, but a different style. In Oregon, they're going for more of Burgundian style of wine. That being in Burgundy, France, what they're doing is they're trying to dial back the fruit character just a touch so that the secondary notes can really kind of come out and come to the forefront. That's where you start to get your florals, your mushroom, your earthiness, that sort of thing. If you're asking my personal preference, this is my favorite bottle of wine on the table. How much my opinion carries, I don't know. In terms of what's in the glass, you're going to be looking for red fruits with Pinot Noir. You're looking for strawberry, raspberry, cherry. Sometimes people say they pick up cherry cola in some Coca-Cola. Now, one thing we haven't talked about yet with wine is tannin. If you're not familiar with tannin, if you have ever had a glass of wine and that feeling that kind of feels like a fuzzy sweater on your teeth, kind of dries your tongue out, the rest of your mouth, that's tannin. If you're a tea drinker, you might know what I'm referring to. Pinot Noir is a thin-skinned grape. It doesn't tend to have a high tannin structure to it. It's a very silky, easygoing wine. It's pretty in a way. It's not too in your face. It's more, about the sensory kind of thing. So you want to pair it with something that is medium bodied, like the wine, a medium bodied food. So if I'm looking at our menu in terms of steak, filet mignon, I don't think you need to look much further. A nice lean red meat. You want to throw some mushrooms and onions on top of that. It certainly wouldn't hurt at all. At home, I'm a charcuterie fiend, so I go with cured meats, prosciutto all day long, cheese boards, that sort of thing. Pizza, if you're a big pizza guy like me, that just, again, pepperoni, cured meat works well with the cheese, with the sauce and all that. It's perfect. It's delicious. And then moving on to our fourth wine, this will be, of course, had to choose a Cabernet Sauvignon. This is the big boy, if I may call it that. So this is Rootstock Cellars Napa Valley Cabernet. This particular bottling happens to be a blend of all 5 Bordeaux varietals, the noble varietals, those being Cabernet, Merlot, Malbec, Petit Verdot, and Cabernet Franc. This wine happens to be 82% Cabernet, followed in order by Cabernet Franc, Merlot, Petit Verdot, and Malbec. Each of those grapes lends a different thing to the wine. Cabernet, of course, we're all familiar with that. I think if you're a wine drinker, that's lending the big, ripe, dark fruit, your blackberries, your cassis, your black currant, your black cherry. The Merlot tends to bring a soft roundness to the wine. It kind of brings that plummy sort of, softer, silkier character. The Cabernet Franc on the nose brings you more of like a green bell pepper kind of feel. You get that from Cabernet Sauvignon also, but the Cabernet Franc tends to be much, much more pronounced in that sense. And then the Petit Verdot and the Malbec are kind of bringing a structure. We talked about tannin. Petit Verdot ups that kind of tannic backbone, if you'd like to think of it that way. Also brings a lot of color to the wine. If you could see these in the glass, this would be much, much lighter, and this would be much, much darker, just like these 2 white wines compared to each other. Then the Malbec brings just another little layer of fruit, just kind of like another nice, easy drinking that it kind of leaves you with that enjoyable feeling, not too much of the secondary. The secondary you usually get in Cabernet is going to be like a tobacco, cedar box kind of thing that comes from the oak influence. You're going to get, like I said, that green bell pepper, cedar, those kind of words. Those are the things you usually associate with Cabernet. And then being the big boy, you want to pair this with a big food. If I'm looking at my menu, or our menu, I should say, this is a ribeye all day long, your strip steaks, those sorts of things. You want something that's going to stand up to all that tannin. You want something with a little bit of a marbling to it so that it cuts through and doesn't leave you with just a dry mouth. You want to be able to taste the wine with the steak and vice versa. If you're at home and I'm sure you're firing up the grill, this is the wine to go to for all your burgers, your hot dogs, anything with that nice char on it. It's the way to go. And that will be all the wines for today. One thing I'd like to say is, in terms of what I had said, there is no perfect pairing. I don't believe there are pairings that make sense. If you like to drink your Pinot Noir with your ribeye and that sort of thing, I don't think anybody else should be able to tell you that you can't do that. Today, just kind of wanted to give you my perspective, a quick little overview of how you can use these wines in easy, simple ways at home. Wine doesn't always have to be this big, scary thing that you need to make this big 5-course dinner for. It could be as simple as snacking on your kids' mac and cheese with Pat's and Hall Chardonnay. All of these wines that I talked about are available for curbside pickup today at the Capital Grille in King of Prussia, as well as hundreds of other selections that we have available in-house. We, of course, also have our wonderful menu available at any time, and anybody here at the Capital Grille in King of Prussia will be more than happy to create a perfect dining experience for you at home. Again, I'd like to just thank the King of Prussia District for allowing me the opportunity to come up and speak to you today, and we look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Thank you and have a great day. Bye-bye.